Welcome back to the BookEnds YouTube channel. I am James McGowan.
And Jessica Faust.
And if you've been watching us, you'd know that we are all social distancing and recording our videos from home. Thank you, Zoom.
Yeah.
So business as usual for us. Today, we are going to jump right in and talk about the questions prospective clients should ask an agent's clients.
Yeah. So, typically once an agent offers representation, an author may or may not, depending on the research they've found on the agent, want to talk to some of that agent's clients.
Right.
And, perfectly acceptable, perfectly fair thing to ask. I mean,
It never hurts.
Right, because you have to remember you are hiring the agent, you are going to pay the agent, and you are seeking a business partner. So it would make sense that when hiring anybody, whether it's an agent or a contractor to work on your house or a plumber, or a caterer, because we like to talk about
Like
food.
food. You go and you read the reviews.
Right, you would read the reviews and or you would speak to people that had previously worked with that person.
Exactly. But we know that kind of going into it blind and asking, hey, how's your agent to work with? It's not really getting you the answers that you need. So we thought we'd put together a list, and we've got sort of 6 topics, which we can break down into little mini questions that we think that.
We're going to ramble on about each of that.
Exactly. But we have 6 basic topics that we think you should be asking these prospective clients.
Yeah.
So number 1, probably what's on the top of most people's list is your agent editorial? How does that editorial revision process work for you with your agent, project by project, or just in general?
So what that means is that an editorial agent is, I guess it should be clear by definition, but it means that the agent is going to work with you editorially on your book.
And we're both super editorial, but we have different ways of being editorial. We revise with our clients super differently. So just sort of getting that sense of how they work.
Right. Not all agents are editorial.
Right.
I mean, I have spoken with agents who some were editors, some were not, and some just don't feel that it's their job, and others just don't want to. They don't feel that their role is to really be an editor. That's not the way they see their role, and that's fine. Like anything else, there are no real rules to what an agent has to do,
Right.
Or how an agent has to work. So it's important to know, do you want an agent who's going to work with you editorially? And what does that mean for the agent and for you?
Well, that's something to remember for all of these. Just throwing my fingers. Something to remember for all of these topics is it's important to go into this conversation knowing what you're looking for and knowing what you want, because if you don't, then you're just kind of getting information that you don't know what to do with yet. So just like thinking through this list and writing down a couple notes of what do I look for in this relationship, and then going into those conversations.
Also keeping in mind that as you speak with agents, as agents offer representation, as you go through that process of choosing the agent, you may learn from those conversations things that you want that you didn't know you wanted, or things that you thought you wanted that in talking to agents is standard, or maybe not exactly what you need, or maybe not your top priority at this moment.
Yes. So number 2 is communication style. Asking these clients how the agents communicate with you by phone, by email. Are they super communicative? Or are they not? Like, how does their communication style work? It's probably one of the most important things to any author-agent relationship.
Yeah, and this is a question you would ask the agent as well.
Yes.
But I think it's also important to understand from the author side of it how the author feels it works. And I think a lot of this is not just how the agent communicates with you, because that is a question the agent can usually answer, but also from the author's perspective is, do you feel comfortable with the communication your agent has? Do you feel that, let's face it, I think that most of us will say we communicate primarily via email. And I'm not just talking agents, I'm talking authors, I'm talking everybody out there in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But if you feel you need a phone call, this would be a good
phone.
question to ask the author. If I feel I need a phone call, is this an agent who is open to a phone call? Because for me personally, there are conversations with authors that I feel are better on the phone There are times when I would just prefer the phone. And there are times when I feel that we need back and forth. So a
I
phone
agree.
call.
Whenever I'm brainstorming, I feel like getting
Yeah.
on the phone is just gonna make everyone's life easy, and it's just gonna like it's one of those formats that just lets the back and forth and the ideas kind of build together.
Yeah.
So and sorry for anybody seeing my hands fly,
The
but I
only thing with
think
the hands is with the Zoom, it feels like my hands get so big.
yeah, it feels like I'm gonna hit some 3D.
I don't like that.
Yeah, so there are times where I think a phone call is beneficial, and knowing if you like to get on the phone or if you want to, you should always find out if the agent is willing to do that.
Yeah, and you may not be a phone person, but you also may still want an agent who's willing to get on the phone. There are some people who are not phone people and would rather never get on the phone. And knowing that from the perspective of the author would be good. And I also think there are also subtle things about communication style that you can get from a client or an author that you might not get from the agent. And that's, could be how does the agent communicate in emotional situations, or is the agent write long emails, or is it short and quick to the point?
Right.
Those kinds of things you could ask the agent, but again, I think seeing it from the other side and hearing it from the other side can be helpful to you.
Right, especially in terms of how authors respond to those things. Because if you're responding to shorter emails negatively, like obviously those are all things that you want to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So this actually leads us right into number three, which is response times. How
Very important.
fast does the agent turn around on projects? How fast do they turn around on just regular emails out there?
It's just getting a sense. I don't know that there's a exact time that's right or wrong here. The author may say, oh, the agent's usually pretty fast, responds pretty quickly, or it's dependent on the situation. And I think that kind of aligns with communication. Does the agent communicate with you when a response will be expected? How does the agent respond to emails? Does the agent respond to phone calls? What happens if they don't? Is
Right.
this an agent who, there are some people who just are not that responsive. We all know this in life. But there are people who are very quick to respond. One of the things I always say to my clients is if I'm not responding, there may be something off.
Yeah,
So if you're
exactly.
not getting my emails, and we've had this situation, especially of late, I think that with so many people working from home, it's really screwed up a lot of systems.
The interwebs are very wonky.
Very wonky. We've had a lot of situations where our emails are ending up in spam in places that they never ended up in spam,
Bouncing.
bouncing, a lot of weirdness. And we have spent, James and I have spent a lot of time talking to our host and our server about this and finding out that it's not necessarily always us, that it's
Right.
just everything's wonky. Anyway, so I guess my point is what I always say to clients is if you're not hearing from me, there's a reason, reach out again. And
Yes.
I think that's a question to ask the author, do I often have to follow up 2 or 3 times before I get a response? Or how responsive is the agent? How long do you usually have to wait? At what point would you follow up a second time?
And
Those
can
kind
you feel comfortable doing that? Like, can you feel like I can follow up after a couple days if you've never responded and you're not going to blow off the handle or something like that?
Yeah, how does the agent react to follow-ups?
Yeah,
And, you
exactly.
know, so I think response times is important just for you to have perspective and give you a comfort level when you're starting
Exactly. Yeah.
the relationship.
Yes. So you know going into things, this is what I can expect.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think if I may,
yeah.
I think one of the pieces that can be so important with these questions is especially new clients and especially those who've never been agented before often feel a real hesitation about communicating with their agent, about following up on things. There's a real fear that you're going to bother the agent
Bother. Yeah.
or be a pest or whatever it is. And I think having this conversation with another author who is agented can really help establish a baseline for you to feel comfortable and know that it's okay to follow up and that it's okay to have expectations in terms of communication and response times.
Right, because again, this is your career, and the same way an agent would expect that from you, you have the right to expect that from an agent, and you have the right to look for that in that relationship and know that that's something that's important to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that leads us to number 4, which is transparency. So how transparent is the agent? Do they let you know when you're out on sub? Do they let you know responses? Are they sending you the sub list when you ask for it? All of those things. Are they keeping you in the loop, basically?
Yes. So it's really important, I believe, that agents be as transparent as possible, that we are um, letting people know our end.
Exactly.
And
It's
I
mis-
think,
Sorry.
what?
Publishing is just a big mystery. So if we can dispel that in any place, obviously that's our job to do that for our clients.
And also remember, again, my oft repeated phrase, this is a business partnership. You have hired this agent to work for you. They are doing a job for you, and you should expect that they're being transparent. And I think all of this sort of blends into one, but knowing from their clients, are they giving you as much information as possible about what they're doing on your behalf is
Right.
important to know.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it could also go in the communication question. Well, if I'm not hearing, is it okay to follow up? I think all of these things kind of loop
They
together.
they definitely all, yeah. They all go hand in hand and hand in hand.
Yeah.
So okay, so number 5 is, what role does the agent play after the deal is made? So everybody knows that an agent's job is to submit to the publishers and negotiate your contract. But once that's said and done and you're working with your editor, how involved is your agent? Do they kind of jump in if you're having any sort of conflict? Do they offer their opinions on things? How does that agent see their role? And what is that author's experience with the agent once that's been done?
This is the question for me that I feel is so subjective. Because I think that I feel like agents can work very differently in all of these situations, but for me anyway, I feel that there is no set sort of right or wrong, especially with this one. If an agent is not being transparent, that to me is a question mark. If an agent does not communicate anything, that to me is a question mark. But what the agent's role in your relationship with your editor can to me be a little bit dependent on what the author wants. On this, it can be situational.
Yeah.
I have played different roles in my authors' careers with their editors, dependent on the authors and the editors in different situations. And I've even played different roles with the same author and the same editor, but on different books.
Yeah, it's so situational. It
Yeah.
depends on what that book is requiring, and anybody in publishing will tell you that every book is different. So it's
Every book is different. And to give you an example of from my end, what my answer to be with it is, I was an editor. And I really believe it's important for my clients to build a relationship with your editor, because your editor is your voice in the publishing house. And the stronger your relationship is with that person, the stronger their voice is on your behalf. So, when it comes to editorial decisions, which can be very subjective, that's for your editor to do. I now, as an editorial agent, step back,
right.
because to me, it's your editor's job to edit. um, and I want you to build that relationship. That being said, I always feel like I'm your cheerleader on their sidelines. I'm a voice, and I'm your partner in this. So if the edits come back and you're struggling with them or have questions about them or are questioning them, that's a great time to bring me in.
Right.
Um, I personally like to be very involved in cover copy and cover art. I like to see that at the time you see it. And I personally like to have a voice in it that comes in from my own experience. But not all agents want that or do that.
Right.
I know that there are some agents who prefer to read every manuscript and be the person who submits it to the editor instead of having the author submit it directly. There's no right or wrong way to that. It kind of depends on what you want. And part of the conversation with another author can be not just what does the agent do, but how have you liked that? Have you worked in different ways? what are your various experiences?
This brings us to number 6, which Jessica, if you would like to tell them because it was your great tip.
Yeah, I think it's a good question to ask the client how, if they've ever had any conflicts or disagreements with the agent and how that was handled. And I think it's less about,
Looking
I think it's more about how the agent reacted.
right,
Did you feel heard?
right. You're not going into it looking for them to badmouth or looking for dirt or anything like
No.
that. You're just sort of getting that side of things from the author and seeing how they felt it was handled.
Yeah, because I think that, again, business partnership. And in any partnership, in any relationship, it's not going to be perfect 24/7.
Right, especially when these partnerships can go on for as long as the author agent relationship does. There's bound to be some hiccups.
Yes, I mean, I've had relationships that have gone on for over 15 years. And, it's not that I can't say that we agreed every day for 15 years. It could be as simple as the author sent me a manuscript and I didn't think it was the right work for them to do. Could
Right.
be that I had a title suggestion and I was a little pushy about it and the author hated it. So when the author has to say to you, I think your idea is dumb, how does the agent respond to that? When the
Yeah.
author has to say, I disagree, or, your last email was a little harsh and it hurt my feelings, whatever it is, it could very well happen. And I know a lot of authors will say, I have tough skin, you can tell me whatever. And I know that because I know authors have to hear a lot. But I also know there are times when they hear it from an agent and it feels a little bit more painful than they wanted it to feel.
Especially
So,
when this is someone who's, offered representation based on loving a book and now they've got a book that they don't particularly love.
right. So asking the author, have you ever had a disagreement and how was it handled, is less about it was handled great, but more about, no, I really felt heard. And, I really felt that we worked together to be able to move forward.
Agreed.
And I think that's sort of what it all comes down to. In the relationship you want to feel heard, and so it's good to know from a perspective how the agent may react to that. And I also, again, with any of these questions, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer.
Not at all.
Just like I don't think there are right or wrong answers to the questions you ask an agent when representation is offered. I think it's more of, how do the answers sit with you? Does it feel like, okay, that's an answer I would like, or that answer will work for me,
That's someone
or
I
what?
still want to work with.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think that what it all comes down to with any of this is, how does it feel in your gut?
Yep.
And that's
That's your
that's
gut.
what you have to go with. But I think we both realize that authors come to us so often when we offer representation with a list of questions, and we'll be discussing more of these, I'm sure, in other videos. And I think a lot of times, sometimes I feel the author's asking the question, but they're not even sure why.
It was just on some listicle somewhere and they thought they have to ask it, which I mean, it's not necessarily wrong. It's always good to get that information, but going into the conversations, knowing why you're asking and what you're looking for is the most important thing you can do, even if that call takes you by surprise. A lot of publishing is just learning on the job, right? So
A lot of
getting that
life is learning on the job.
true. Getting that experience is only gonna just help you build up what you are looking for and make you more confident in what you need as an author, in an agent, in an editor, in a publisher, all of that stuff. So
And
don't be so hard on yourself, but just
no, no.
ask the questions and get the information because you never know when it might like pop out in your head or something like that.
And some of these questions can just be, if you have an opportunity to go to a writer's conference or you meet authors who are agented through a critique group or other situations, maybe an online group that you're a member of, some of these questions can be part of a conversation. You don't want to quiz other authors, but can
Right.
be part of a conversation you can have with other authors, throughout the whole process of even querying of, oh, I didn't know you were represented by James McGowan. What's he like?
Right.
What's he like to work with? Is he as hilarious in real life as he is online? Like that kind of stuff.
Thanks.
So hopefully, when you get that magical offer of representation and you're doing your research and doing the work, these questions will help you a little bit.
Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe and click the little bell because we're posting videos
Constantly.
fairly regularly these days. So you never know when you're going to get one, and you might as well have a notification that a new one popped up.
Yeah.
Um, so we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks for coming. See you later.